And we're here with Jim and Cheryl and Linda. I am Scott Stimson from International Computer Solutions, and this is our meeting. We have started early. Cheryl, you've already got your hand up. I'm already addressing your issues.
No, Jim Cunningham. Let me read you the emails from Jim Cunningham this morning. Are we having SCCC now at 10:04? I've been trying to get in for 10 minutes, and so I told him 1 hour difference, 11 o'clock our time. He goes, oops, my bad. And now he's not here. So
And now
he's been
not here
for over an hour.
Well, I don't know. Nobody has really signed up to the blog that we have for the computer club. I think, Cheryl, you are. And I was a day off with my publication. I'm like, hey, wait a second. Why did I just publish this yesterday? Apparently, we were meeting on the 30th, not the 29th. But I didn't know that when I was writing the WordPress. My own mistakes. And then this morning, still, I was 2 hours off thinking there was a 2 hour difference, and there's actually a 1 hour difference. So I had to reschedule the YouTube. So I'm happy to see so many faces here to begin with.
That's so wait a minute. So it's 10 o'clock
Arizona time.
And
it's 9 o'clock Alaskan time.
And 9 o'clock, it's 10 o'clock in BC on the island. And it's 11 o'clock in Alberta and in Colorado. Linda, are you in Arizona?
Yeah, it's 10 o'clock.
Oh, for crying out loud. So only one out of all.
Right. So we're the same time as Mexico.
We should go real scientific and start using Greenwich Mean Time.
Greenwich Mean Time. Well, I don't know if you noticed when I post it, I always say 10 a.m. UTC -7. So you figured out.
You're already doing it. Good. Very good.
Well, no, I'm very happy you guys are here because I definitely had my own confusions. And I apologize for having to cancel last week, but I was a zombie when I woke up Tuesday morning. We had been traveling all day the day before. I had done nothing to get prepared for Computer Club. And I got up and I'm like, oh my gosh, this thing's supposed to start in like 15 minutes. So
and we were out and about, and Bill said, oh, I need to log in. And I said, no, you don't. But I want to. And I said, no. He hadn't gotten the message.
Well, anyway, oh, go ahead, Jim. I'm sorry.
I was unavailable last week, too, so didn't even miss.
Didn't even miss it. All right. Well, have you guys did you get a copy of the document I sent out? I didn't see anybody add anything. Did you guys come today with some topics you wanted to talk about?
No, I just read it over, though.
There's Jim. Yep. Welcome. How you doing, Jim? Can you hear us okay?
Which Jim?
Jim Cunningham just joined. Welcome. All right, I just put the link to the document in case anybody doesn't have it right in front of them, right in the chat there. And just the first topic of order is these are virtual meetings from now on until I'm back in San Carlos in October. Of course, you guys can always gather with each other. I can't stop you from doing that. But we're not having a formal in-person meeting where I'm the host until I get back in October. And we've had some setbacks here in the bed and breakfast, but I did come with a story I thought you might find interesting. One of the first things we ever do when we get here, good morning, Judy, welcome, is I go through mom and dad's tech stuff. I get internet set up for the rest of the house. And my daughter and I moved into the apartment below my parents. They live in a duplex. So they live in the grand house above, and there's a mother-in-law apartment below. and we rent that out as bed and breakfast. And then the house next door is where I typically live. I live in an apartment downstairs and rent out the rooms above, and the combination of those rooms we call the bed and breakfast. Since we have renters in those areas, we had a renter leave this area early so that Emily and I could move into it. So we're occupying the 2 rooms that are here under my folks. And Emily started complaining. Well, speaking of the folks, here's one now. Hi, Mom.
Hi, Dad is off. He called away. If you're looking for topics, I have one.
Okay. Well, I was just sharing how Emily and I are living underneath you guys right now. And Emily, Mom's pounding on the floor right now. I don't know if you guys could hear that. She's right above me.
That's how I used to call him for meals.
I'm having flashbacks to 13 years old. Well, Emily enlightened me to the idea that the internet sucked. And I'm like, how can it suck? And I get on my computer and I start doing speed tests, and it's the best it's ever been. We've got like 500 megabytes down, 50 up. It's very, very, very useful for what we need it for. And I look at Emily's device and she's getting 2, getting 4 if she's lucky, 6. Now, she's quite a ways away from our traditional router. It's not a mesh router. So we're downstairs around the corner. But seriously, sitting right next to her, I was getting over 100, 150, 200 megabits a second. And she was getting 2, 4, 5 on her device. I discovered that her device was only making the traditional 2.4 gigahertz connections. And you guys have seen this in your routers. Many of the Telmex routers will broadcast 2 different signals. They'll broadcast one that's labeled 2.4G and another one that's labeled 5G. It's normally the name, the random name they've given you, like infinitum X145. And then it's got an underscore, and it'll say 2.4G and underscore 5G. Or sometimes you'll see them and they'll just say the name of your network, and then the 5G would have an underscore 5G next to it. It's been the source of confusion with normal people for years since they've started doing 5G, a cell phone 5G service, because it's literally the same name for a completely different technology. Anyway, she was connecting at the 2.4, that traditional Wi-Fi. 2.4G is the spectrum, frequency spectrum of the radios from the very beginning of Wi-Fi. 2.4G is gigahertz, is that frequency that everything from wireless mice and keyboards to our Bluetooth devices use. And consequently, and you're probably aware of this, there was a very limited range of channels in that frequency. And so it's very easy to disrupt. There's a lot of devices out there still that use that frequency range for all their own things. Even the cordless phones for your traditional landlines, they started out outside that frequency, and right when Wi-Fi was getting popular, they dumped into that frequency. They started putting out these devices that were 2.4G cordless phones. And to this day, if you have an old cordless phone in your house, it could be the source of your frustrations with your Wi-Fi connection, especially if you got it sitting right next to your computer.
Is that what it turned out to be with the phone?
No, it didn't. But I definitely was able to create the same problem. All I did was take my device, connect it to that other frequency range. And in this case, that was very easy because it's like I described to you. There's literally 2 different networks that appear. If you support 5G, very typically like an Apple device, then you will see the two devices. If your device only supports 2.4, you're not going to see the other network. So if your device is multi-capable, you're going to see multi-networks. And if your device only does that traditional frequency range, then you'll only see that traditional network. That's basic. You're blind to the other option. Your device doesn't support it. So on her device, she didn't see anything else, but because it's how her phone is. My phone saw both networks, and so I was able to just switch right over. And at the moment I switched over, 10 times slower. So something's interfering with it. Something's causing a problem. As Wi-Fi networks have become more saturated in our areas, routers have fought to keep up. And one of the biggest frustrations I've felt doing IT is replacing perfectly working equipment with new equipment because it can't keep up with the interference that's being generated around them. Quite literally, I could take the router that's having a problem out into the field where there's no Wi-Fi around it, and it's perfectly acceptable. It works fine. And so it's a little frustrating to know that the only reason that you need a new router is because everyone around you has new routers, and they are interfering with you. And it's kind of like it's like an arms race where we're refortifying to be able to do the same thing we were doing before. So in this case, the first thing I did was look at the router. Well, the router, we bought it a number of years ago, but it was state-of-the-art at the time. It absolutely supported all the latest standards that were being conceived. It's a Netgear Nighthawk, and so it supports Wi-Fi speeds up to 350 megabits a second. It supports the AC standard, so it's just right on the edge of what's capable. We're just now moving into Wi-Fi 6, and this was right on the edge of Wi-Fi 6 before we started calling Wi-Fi by individual numbers. And Nighthawk is such a premium consumer brand that you expect Netgear to release updates to it. It's not a one-off. It's a TP-Link you could think of as a bit of a one-off, especially with their traditional routers. You wouldn't expect to find firmware updates for it. If we are dealing with this kind of problem, TP-Link you'd probably chuck and buy a new one. So in this case, I found an update immediately for it. This router also supports a mobile device app. So I had downloaded it for my iPhone, and I was looking at the router. I was able to check, and it told me there was a firmware update. I did a firmware update to it and immediately got these speeds back that we were expecting. And what that tells me is that they have rewritten their algorithms for channel swapping so that when it encounters interference, it immediately is jumping over to another channel, or it's boosting power when it's finding interference. But it's using schemes that we're thinking of now that they weren't having to think of 4 years ago or 5 years ago because the interference wasn't as extreme. I also, to give the router better opportunities at these speeds, I noticed that our cable gateway was still generating a Wi-Fi pocket. And any Wi-Fi pocket in that spectrum is a candidate for interference. And if we're not using it, we should turn it off. And so I got in and I turned off the Wi-Fi in our cable gateway using only our own router. And so now we're getting speeds at the other end of the house that are like 50 to 80 megabits a second. For traditional Wi-Fi, that's not bad speeds. Without any kind of mesh, without any kind of extender, that's a reasonable speed.
Sarah Krause.
Jim, you got a lot of phone calls going on over there. I don't know if you can hear me.
Jim Cunningham.
I'm gonna mute
Hey,
Jim
good
here.
morning. How are you? Good. Are we all meeting tomorrow?
He doesn't realize that his microphone is not muted, so I'm gonna mute it now. He doesn't know that he was the highlight of our meeting for a moment. So anyway, that is to me a testimony to buying really good equipment. It's a story about how interference. Like last year we didn't have this problem. This year we do. It could very well be related to our neighbors just upgrading their infrastructure. Does anybody have any similar experiences or problems with their Wi-Fi? I know it's summertime, so we're moving around a lot. Maybe somebody's encountered interference problem. Well, Cheryl and Bill were debugging their network earlier this morning. Yeah,
well, around here, our brother printer has just decided to didn't want to talk to anybody else on its airwaves, so we're trying to work on that.
The brother's a wireless printer?
Yeah, wireless, and all of a sudden it just decided one afternoon to stop. It gives some kind of a message eventually, and Carolyn's been on some tech sites to try and figure it out. I'm sure she'll figure it out eventually, but we might just have to shut everything down and turn it back on again.
That's the one my parents own. Is that the very first thing you do when you can't print is you turn it off, wait 10 seconds, turn it back on, and it solves the problem over 90% of the time because it has a problem.
Just unplug it.
It would literally just turn it off. Watch it shut itself down. Your display will show lights or messages as it shuts down, and then it'll go dark. Let it sit for a few seconds, and then hit the button and turn it back on. Wait for it to come up. They have a Canon that, for some reason, trying to remember, is it a 3500? I'm not remembering it now. A Canon Pixma. Maybe. And it's an ancient one, and it has a problem where if it sits on unused over an extended period of time, it freezes up its ability to make a connection. It can do everything else. You can copy from it. You can, I assume you can scan, but only to a USB because it's not making a network connection. But the only fix for it has ever been to turn it off, wait 10 seconds, and turn it back on. You don't need to adjust any other computer thing. You just need to wait for it to come back on. It will connect to the network and start working.
Well, it shuts itself off normally, and normally you just...
Well, does it, or does it go into a sleep mode?
Yeah, I think that we wake it up kind of thing. That's why I thought I'd just unplug it, then I would... No, it was off.
But that sleep mode might be, like in this case, I think it's in the sleep mode that it freezes up. And so we have to go through the shutdown because it'll wake up manually. If I go and touch it, it'll wake up. But it's still not connected to the internet. And so we have to, now that no, it should wake itself up if it should be listening to the internet. And that's what it's not doing, is it's not listening to the network, so it won't make those connections. Even when it's asleep, it's supposed to listen to the network. It's supposed to wait for that ping. And Jim, wireless printers like that typically have an indicator that they're connected. So when you're not having, and this is a frustration with my parents' printer as well, is that if it had gotten knocked off the network, there'd be like a flashing light indicating that it's no longer connected. That light would be solid when it's got a connection to the network and flashing when it doesn't have a connection. It's the Wi-Fi light on the printer. So
Oh, mine doesn't do that, and I have an Epson. But I found if we have a power failure, or not a power failure, the internet goes down, then you almost have to unplug it, let it sit, and then plug it back in to reconnect itself.
Yeah. And that works though.
Yeah, because I have an HP that does the same thing. Even though it shows it's online, it won't print.
Well, and that's mom and dad's printer is when it has this problem, the indicator light shows that it's still connected to the Wi-Fi network, even though it won't print. It's
Right.
unavailable on the network. They don't have to pull the plug, but pulling the plug is that's the last resort. What else can you do?
Yeah.
My Canon Pixma does the same thing. It says it's connected, but it isn't.
And you
Right.
have to shut it down and wait a little bit and turn it back on, and it connects up.
Yeah, but I just use the button because the sleep mode never worked for me. So I turned it off on the settings.
So yeah, if you're somebody that does the off button on your printer when you're done, you'd never experience this. This experience is with printers that sit in a standby sleep mode the majority of their time.
Right.
What'd you find, Jim? Did you find an indicator
Well,
light?
I didn't, there's no red light on there, and I looked through some settings and so on, like that didn't have anything, but that it does have sleep. It sleeps after 5 minutes of it not being used. So
Maybe turn the sleep off.
If you
Just unplug it. Unplug it.
well, I shut it down before you unplug it. If you can shut it, if it's frozen, you can't shut it down. But if you just unplug it, it's a print server, and so it's got software that's running. Even HPs will yell at you the next time you turn it on, and Canons will yell at you. It'll be like, hey, this wasn't shut down correctly. You need to make sure you shut it down correctly before you unplug it.
I really don't know how to shut it down.
Well, there should be a power. I mean, if you hit the power button, you should watch it go through flashing lights and a display telling you kind of what's going on before it goes dark.
Oh yeah, here it goes, shutting down.
Yeah, and then when that's finished, if you want, unplug the power because easily it could be storing something.
Yeah, because they, like, if they don't print, then they store the print, and then when you go to turn them back on, then they print out every page that.
It asked me to cancel all that. I
Okay.
can't.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to unplug it.
Yeah. And then, Jim, another technical tap you can give to the printer is when it's unplugged, press and hold some of the buttons on the interface because that'll force the printer to release any stored electricity. As it's unplugged, just hold down the power button. And any capacitors, any capacitors that are still charged will discharge.
Oh yeah.
This is completely cold printer now. There should be no electricity in it whatsoever.
Okay, so plug it back in now?
Yeah, plug it back in and give it just a moment and then hit the power button. And somewhere during startup, you're going to see an indicator that it's connected.
It just started lighting up already by itself.
Oh, great. So look for an indicator that it's connecting to your Wi-Fi network. It's either going to be an icon on your display or a network light.
It might have also lost his password. He might have to go back into and put his password back in.
Man, if your printer's doing that, I'd get a new printer. There was an HP model I sent back for 3 different customers. They'd all bought the same one. I'm like, send it back. It keeps forgetting its passwords.
Oh, now it's going through, how it's probably been a print.
Self-check.
Initial print.
Did you happen to see any indicator of Wi-Fi connection?
I wouldn't know how to find that out.
Do you have an LCD display you're looking at?
Yeah.
So along the top, is there like an icon for an antenna or some waves?
Yeah,
Okay.
and it's
Should
full.
And it's full. So that sounds to me like it connected to the Wi-Fi network.
Good. Now I should get organized and try to print something, but I'm talking to you guys, so I
yeah.
can't.
On the Macintosh, what you would do is you go into system preferences under printers, and you should see your printer listed there. And when and it should have an indicator, like a green indicator in the column saying that it's available, idle. And if it's not found, the driver that's installed in your computer is not found, then it's going to have like a an orange color or something under it.
Yeah. Well, I got you guys on the computer now, so I can't really see that, I don't think. Or there might be a way, I suppose. But...
Yeah, you could go up to the Apple and pull down to System Preferences. And then in the lower right hand of that well, actually, I don't know which operating system you're using. FYI, for anybody on Macintoshes, the newest one has a completely different System Preferences dialog box.
Oh, yeah. Well, this one, I got all these different things, user groups, password,
So in the lower right hand part of that window, there should be one that says printers. Mom, I see your hand up. What would you like to add?
No, I'm sorry. I was reacting to my computer doing something weird.
Oh, okay. But everything's fine. You're laying hands on it?
I just shut my computer down and back up. Maybe it'll solve the problem. That was one of my problems. I couldn't get it to shut down.
Oh, all right.
I'm looking at you on my phone. First time ever.
Well, I was going to say, it looks great.
Yeah, right. Okay, let me see if I can work this out myself. You keep going.
Okay.
Okay, so it says the last printer used, and there's no printers available.
So in that column to the left, there should be a list of the printers you have installed. Yeah, and as you look at each one, you should see a status.
Oh, I found nearby printers. Yeah, I got them. I just clicked on the nearby printer.
Okay.
Preparing. Now it's preparing.
See if it does anything.
This is great. I don't be over thrilled.
Well, hopefully this will work. The last thing that you'd have to do, if everything's healthy and just goofy, Mom, I need to mute you because you're bleeding through.
I'm not doing anything. It's absolutely quiet here.
I know, but what I'm saying is coming through your speakers. I'm listening to myself come across it. Not anymore because I muted you. I don't know why it was doing that, but so I shut my mom down. That's what Linda's laughing about.
You're a brave man.
Thank you.
That or don't.
I'll regret it later, I'm sure.
Because she's still talking, Sandra.
So, so the last thing that you would do then, if it's still not working, is you would remove, you'll see there's a minus sign in the lower left-hand corner of that window, and you'd highlight the printer it's supposed to be working, and you'd hit minus, and then you would hit the plus, and you would go in and you'd find the printer again and reinstall it in your computer. The Macintosh has the advantage of pretty much having all the printer's drivers right there. So you typically do not have to do downloads and installs. You typically can just find it and set it up on the network. Windows is getting closer to that, but it's not as nice as the Mac.
It was preparing for a while. Now it's come back. An error occurred while trying to add the selected printer.
Yeah. So I think I would remove that printer, and then I would go to the plus sign.
Yeah.
And that'll bring up another dialog where it's finding the printer.
Yeah. Well, that's what I did. I put the plus sign in, and it says add printer or scanner, and it said nearby printers, and then it gave this number, and so that's how I got to this one.
Oh,
And
it gave you the printer, but then it
'cause
couldn't
it's
set it
nearby.
up.
Yeah, weird, eh?
Wow. Okay,
No
now
wonder.
at this
Wonder Carolyn's
point,
having trouble.
what's that, Jim?
No wonder Carolyn's having trouble with it.
Right, right. No, because all of that is under the assumption everything is healthy. It's
Yeah.
it's just a glitch. Everything we just did is just the printer's fine. It's just a glitch with the wireless network. The computer's fine. It's just a glitch with the software. Now what we've got to figure out is like from an IT perspective, I would stop with that computer and I would go to like the iPad or a iPhone or another computer and see if it's having the same problem. Because
I don't have, that's the only one I have here right now. So
yeah, I mean, it's convenient when you've got another device, because if two devices are having the same problem printing, then
I can't hear Scott. Can anybody hear me?
yeah, I can
we
hear
can
you.
hear
Judy.
you. Yeah.
Can you hear Scott?
Yeah.
Hearing Scott too.
Scott keeps breaking up for me, but then he comes back on.
And Cheryl, you break up. You've disappeared and come back a couple of different times, where your video is awesome, and then all of a sudden you're gone.
Well, I did turn the camera off a couple of times.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, let's see. We'll see if we can coordinate, though. If I'm breaking up, let's see if you're breaking up at the same time. It might be happening over on your end.
You're not breaking up. Looks like Judy went off and she's going to come back on. Oh, there she is.
There you go.
Can you hear me now, Judy?
Yes, I can.
All
Everybody
right.
else?
Everybody else?
I did that too. I rejoined a while ago, and I think it's been better since.
Okay. Very good. Well, yeah, Jim, so at this point, if you can test it with another device,
Yeah.
then you'd be able to determine whether it's in the laptop or if it's in the printer.
Okay, I'll when I get a chance, I'll do that.
Yeah, and
I'll lit up again, so
Linda may have a good suggestion. She suggested that maybe it forgot its password. It looks like it's connected, but there's nothing wrong with setting the printer back to factory settings and connecting it to the network again. That could resolve it. Somewhere in the menu, you would find a reset to factory, or it's a combination of buttons.
I saw that.
Yeah.
As I was looking through there.
So that would eliminate all but factory settings. So any changes you might have made to it over the life of the printer since the last time it was set up, all that would disappear, which 99% of those changes were not intentional in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
The most intentional changes you made was you put it on your Wi-Fi network. But the rest of the changes that are in there are things like color depth, paper size. I mean, things that are just by default correct, if you follow what I mean. So I guess what I'm saying is that the most concern that you would have by restoring to factory settings a printer would be you're going to have to add it to the network again. That's the biggest concern.
Great. Well, we'll try that one next.
Yeah. Yeah, if you have another device, test that. If the other device prints just fine, then it's definitely in your computer. And so you're diagnosing what's going on with the computer. But at this point, you can't do that. You're in a meeting with us. And everything else about the computer seems to be working. So it's hard to think that it's the computer's problem.
Yeah, I don't think it is. It seems to be the printer.
Yeah.
So when we have a big ocean here.
Well, that was a fun. I hope that people got something out of that. The Wi-Fi issue in general is a good one to keep an eye on. I was really caught off guard when Emily was showing me speeds that were 10 times slower than what I thought would be some of the slowest speeds. And if it hadn't been a Netgear Nighthawk router, there wouldn't be an update for it. And so that solving that problem would have been much more complicated.
What's the price? What's the price difference between that Nighthawk and those ones that don't get, that are throwaways?
Well, again, in this day and age now, like buying into a mesh network when we got that Nighthawk wasn't reasonable. I think the Nighthawk was like $199, like a $200 router, and the mesh networks were going up in $500 and $600 price tag. Now, at this period in time, they are the same price points. They're right around $200 for either the latest version of a traditional router with the latest technology versus a mesh network. And I would have trouble recommending a traditional router. Nowadays I would think of it as a special purpose router. Like you have some very special reason that you're buying into that particular router hardware. From a consumer standpoint, when I look at life through your eyes, I think what you're in the market for is these mesh networks. I just purchased three a 3-node mesh network, Google Nest Wi-Fi. Now, this is unique compared to the other mesh networks in that there is a router node and then there's extender nodes, but it's still the mesh concept. And I got it refurbished on Amazon for $160. I'm going to be setting this up as our new Wi-Fi network for our customers. I believe that unless you know of a special purpose that requires a traditional network, you're going to be happier with the mesh network technology. Just the ability to grab another node, you've got a place where Wi-Fi hasn't gone out to the patio, or it's not in the garage. You can make that value comparison, the convenience versus price of buying another node and sticking it in the garage, and now you have robust Wi-Fi in that area or out on the patio. And it's just complicated extenders with the traditional. Linda, I'm sorry, I'm bleeding through your speakers now, so I'm gonna mute you because I'm listening to myself through your speakers. Judy, you had a question. Go ahead.
So this isn't a question. This is a kind of a new topic. So I got back to Colorado, and of course my DirecTV doesn't have local channels anymore because my box is too old and I refuse to go through their thing to get a new one. So I did two things. First, I got one of those small little antennas that sits in your house, and it's little.
One of the HD antennas.
Yes, yeah. That you just screw into where the cable out goes. And I get like 43 channels, of which probably I watch maybe 10 of them, or I could. And then I also signed up for Linda's IPTV, which is working really well too, except I can't figure out how to find my channels quickly. But I'll learn that soon. But the little antenna was like well, actually the one I have right now, I borrowed from my neighbor, but I ordered a new one for $18, and I canceled DirecTV, which was $120 a month. And so I'm getting ready to cancel. And they said, oh, well, since you're a VIP person, we can credit you. We can give you a good deal and give you $20 off a month for your DirecTV. And I said, well, that would have been really nice had you offered that before.
Yeah. Can you just send me the money and cancel my DirecTV?
Yeah, so I did cancel it, but I still have to pay. It was bundled with CenturyLink. So I'm just going to suggest that if anybody still bundles their TV Internet. And yeah.
CenturyLink, that's your internet, right? Yeah.
Well, I have to have CenturyLink for internet and phone.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I bundled DirecTV with it. So I would go ahead and suggest that you, because now I'm going to have to pay the bill and then wait for a MasterCard credit back from DirecTV. So,
Hey, Cheryl, what do you got?
Bundling. We have Shaw Cable, and that's our telephone and our TV and our internet. And every year when we get home, because I put it on 6-month vacation, 6 months from the day that they turn it off, they turn it back on. And we just keep the phone with a voicemail. So it costs me, but in the last couple of years, because we're monitoring the house, we keep the internet on. Before I do anything when I get home, one of the first things during all the medical appointments is phone Shaw, tell them that I don't like their prices, and may I speak to their loyalty department. So we're not VIPs, but we're loyal. So we go to the loyalty department and they always find me discounts. They usually put them on for about 6 months, which works just great. So, but yeah, I do often threaten to cancel, but phone first before you cancel.
Cheryl and I have a new saying. We were in a store somewhere in the States, and we were buying something, and she asked about, do you have a seniors discount? He says, oh, I already gave you the wisdom discount. The wisdom discount being for old people.
Oh.
It was a nice way of getting the discount. The senior discount doesn't bother me at all. But I like wisdom.
But actually, it was April 21st, and what I said to the person was, "Gee, we missed a special day yesterday." Being 420. So you guys know where I was. Anyways, and I said, well, do you have any other kind of discounts that are still applicable today? He said, yeah, I can give you the wisdom one. So, he was so cute. And so we got the wisdom at the marijuana store.
That's wild. These are your new pronouns.
The whiz.
Refer to me as whiz or wizard or wise.
Pronouns are a big topic in our province today, unfortunately.
I'm sorry I brought it up. I'm sorry.
I was waiting for you to tell me about this, Cheryl. I haven't even looked at the news. What happened?
I can't speak.
Oh,
no, sorry.
That's too bad.
That's a first.
No, well, because I'm crying.
Okay.
So no, our Trump, as we refer to her, our premier of our province, who likes to rule in very similar situation as Mr. Trump, says things very similar to what he says. Yeah, she got in. She did lose a few seats, and the NDP gained some, but we got another 4 years of
Still a landslide? Still a landslide?
No, much closer. So not a landslide.
Not close enough to challenge, though, huh?
Well, we've become a real two-party province, which, there's only 2 provinces in the ledge. And she's got enough seats that hopefully she'll be able to keep them in line. And they did lose some of the people that were the real whack jobs, like our ex-health minister.
To be fair, we have really moved from a one-party province. This province always seems to be ruled by a huge majority of some party. And we are now truly a 2-party system. So the elections are a lot more interesting than they used to be. That's for sure.
Yeah, it used to be just a foregone conclusion. For 40 years you had the same...
Well, even before that, the parties were still, there was only just one party in power. There was, with a few scattered opposition. Now it's almost evenly divided. And a lot of the ones that the NDP lost are very, very close. Like the popularity vote, or whatever you call it, is way closer than it's ever been before.
Oh, great to hear.
We're coming.
It used to be that the New Democrats they had to make sure that they focused on certain ridings, and so they weren't getting the total popular vote, but even when they won, I don't think. But that's great.
Yeah, well, next time around, we might even have a really good chance of getting into the power again.
Yeah.
Maybe.
You never know. You never know, and it's an opportunity to show up what she's really like, because she was just came in at the end. How long was she in
about 6 months?
6 months only. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, she did a hell of a lot of destruction in 6 months.
I know.
Now she's got 4 goddamn years.
I know.
And the thing is that the people, the door knockers for her party were basically saying, don't worry about her, just vote for the party, and we'll get rid of her after the election. That's basically what they were saying. She is such a wingnut that her party doesn't even like her.
Well, that's interesting. Pretty hard to crowbar a premier out of that seat, though.
No, it's not. They can call a review, an election review or whatever, anytime they want, and that's what they did with Kenny, the last premier.
It took 3 years.
Well, this one's crazier than him, so it may not take as long.
Yeah. Oh well.
But the
problem,
now
make it a tech topic.
The problem is that she's.
I have
a. Pardon me.
We have 1 minute.
No, we have 10 minutes.
No, 1 hour. Oh, sorry, read it wrong.
It says, but anyways, technology with the election results last night. So you were allowed to vote across our province in advance polls for 5 days, from Tuesday through Saturday. The election is actually on Monday. So we had the national guys from Global TV here, and they start, the election polls have closed, and we're getting the results. It took an hour and a half to get some results from one or two of the places, but they were coming in one vote at a time. So they would say that they had to, the map was all blue, which is the Conservatives, with one vote. It took hours. They don't know. It was just a way. Anyways, Alberta election and broadcasting and getting the results in and the way they do it has got to change, because it was midnight and the polls closed at 8. It was midnight before they could even say, we think we can declare who's won. And it was supposed to be done by 10.
But that was in the same day of the election?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's not our system at all. What do you got to add, Mom?
I just want to ask Cheryl, what is the population you're dealing with there?
I don't know. How many? What
3
do we have?
3 million, isn't it?
I was going to say, is it 3 million? It's close to 3. Yeah.
3 or 4.
Yeah.
Now the voting population is they mentioned it last night. Was it it's under 2? Is that 1 point something?
Yeah.
1.7 million. There it is. 1.7 million voting population.
Eligible voters, yeah.
Yeah, eligible voters, and I'm not sure how many we had come in, but we had a lot before, like in the advance polls, and the
75,000 in advance polls.
Well, that's weird. In Alaska, it'll take us a good week to get our election results.
Well, the media declares, like the final votes aren't in or anything, and she won't be sworn in, and nobody will be in their position. But they usually account on the TV, on the radio, by a couple hours after the polls close.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I mean, we've got a population of just under 600,000 most of the time. And it can easily take more than a week to get results out of the state for what our elections were. I remember when Obama was elected, my vote didn't matter because they had already determined that before they had counted Alaska.
Well, we have that in the federal situation. As the polls close, when the polls close here, they can start telling us who's our prime minister, because everything in the East is already ahead of us.
Is
that's
there much
less so
media
a-
projection in Alaska for their candidates, Mom?
Say it again, Scott.
Is there much media projection like what Cheryl's talking about? What we see on the national level, absolutely. We're guessing as the polls are coming in for the president, but we don't have official counts, and it's the media that's calling it. But locally, do you feel like there's much of that goes on in Alaska? See,
I don't know.
I feel like
we have everything going on in Alaska. It
Oh.
just depends on the year. I mean, everything that the nation, brings up as things to interfere with election is probably magnified here simply because, we're just such a small population with such long distances. There isn't a lot of stability with the internet as we would hope for, and the new money that's coming in for infrastructure. I think quite a bit of it will go towards communications within villages, to the regular world, I guess you'd call it. So yeah, it just depends. I don't think I answered that question very well. So I will sit back.
I guess from my perspective, I feel like from the Alaskan news, you don't hear. I feel like I hear more news reminding me we're waiting for the results than I hear news predicting what the results are going to be. And I don't know if that's uniquely Alaskan, or because that's definitely not the case when we're dealing with national candidates. The media is determining who won when we're dealing with a presidential election. Maybe even when. What do you think, Mom?
Well, I was thinking the U.S. Took a position, or the media took a position that they would not release results that were clearly defined until the West Coast had a chance to cast ballots. And then they could start after 8 o'clock or something like that, they would start releasing results. And I think that's helped to increase the interest of the West Coast into voting, which California always has had a great interest, but parts of the West Coast hasn't. It still interferes with Alaska because they start, before Alaska has finished voting. But I think Alaska is finally getting on top of voting early, because it seems like our last vote, we had a great deal of vote in before we finished. So.
Well, and that's one of the reasons it takes a week or two, is because we've got so much. Even our local elections are distance voting. Mm-hmm. Because there's such great distances from small communities that are accounting for things.
And I'm sure Canada has that same, they have to have that same kind of problem, because if you had solved it in Canada, we would have figured it out here from you. We would have probably taken it from you. But I think we're in the same boat. Lots of little villages and people that are having trouble being heard.
Like Colorado, though, has electronic voting, and it really works well.
Yeah, we can do fax voting, which is strange, but we can.
I can print out the ballot, sign it, and scan it back.
Yeah, we can do that. Well,
yeah, we don't have that. It's all paper in our provincial election and federal election. Our civic election has got one of those things you scan it into the and you mark your ballot with a pencil and scan it in. So they have immediate answers.
Do you do that from your home?
No, you have to go to the polling station.
I mailed in my 4 years ago, I guess, I mailed in my provincial one. Maybe it was my federal one, I can't remember. But anyways, there were so many votes there in 19 and 20. But we had a Sharpie this time, not a pencil. It wasn't a little pencil. They usually have a whole bunch of pencils in there, but this one is a black Sharpie. And I really had to look, because it was this tiny little oval, like the size of the Sharpie point, was what we had to, like usually you put an X and this in a big square, big for my eyes, but this was so tiny I couldn't even see it beside the person's name. So they said, make just use the Sharpie and the felt pen, and be careful.
Well, when I voted absentee from in Alaska, it's been through fax.
Oh, yeah.
And so I've done it like that for years. And there's some disclaimer in it about privacy information. You're waiving your rights to privacy information. And I've always read that as meaning people are literally looking at these. They're going through, whether they're being collected on a computer or they're stacking on the floor in some office. There's human eyes that are looking at this and punching in those results. So I don't know if that's true, but that was always the impression I was getting when I was doing it, that somebody was going to look at my ballot. They were one step away from knowing it was my ballot, which has never bothered me.
Ending.
What's that?
Call is ending.
I don't have a call ending message on mine. Now
Well,
I do.
I do.
Damn it. You jinxed
It's
me.
under a
Should
minute.
we move over to the other one?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Here we go. Well, that couldn't have gone
Hey.
smoother.
Hey, guys.
Cheryl, how did your local candidate do?
It was very, very close. We went to a rally. We met the leader. We really, and he came to our house and he had a picture taken right on the end of our driveway. Anyway, so he's a really nice ex-teacher. He came within 2,000 votes different. So yeah, but the other NDP candidate, like Sherwood Park town, and we're on the edge of Sherwood Park, Strathcona County, so we're quite a rural area. The Sherwood Park town one, they got NDP.
Yeah, urban does better.
Yeah.
New Democrats do better in urban areas.
They called it the donut around Edmonton.
Yeah.
The Conservatives have no representatives in Edmonton. The capital has no MLAs from the leading party. Okay, and the area around it, the donut that we live in, there's on the
Complete-
west, but not in the east and the north. No.
Well, there you go.
So
All
it's
right.
going to be interesting when they try to do their cabinet because they don't have representation from the capital.
Ironic.
All right. Do we have tech topics?
All right, so
Hey, I
Welcome
hear
back to
Scott
Computer
talking
Club.
downstairs.
It's
Oh.
not working. Stamp on the
He's
floor.
not coming on. He may need to
Give her a
come up
couple of
with
thumps.
my computer.
I've got a recommendation. The Transatlantic. It's a series.
Oh, yeah.
Ah,
Sandy, stamp on the floor to get him to come
Come
up.
on, up on the floor. Tell him he's not on. He had the same thing when he started the last meeting. Him and I were in, and I said, well, I can't see you, and he said, oh, that's because
What?
I haven't turned this on. So he's got
I'm
something
on.
that he hasn't turned on. So,
I can see you. Can you? Oh,
Anyway, that one and
Here we
what's
go.
another one? Women at War.
hello,
Women at
hello.
War. It's another series. We're into that right now.
he's trying to get on right now. I
Can
see
you
him.
hear me?
yes, we can.
Hear you, can see you.
Okay, yeah. I didn't realize the camera and the microphone was off. You've gotten most of my good information, but I was talking to myself apparently.
Well, I could
Your
hear
mom
you,
said
but
I could
not
hear you talking.
nobody else could.
So we said we'd all jump on our floor, but it didn't work.
Yeah, Mom was thumping. I was listening to you guys talk. I thought you could hear me. Well, do we have any more tech topics? I heard a recommendation for Transatlantic from Jim, and I was just writing that down. I'll take recommendations or other topics, or we could talk about news topics I've brought. Cheryl, what do you got?
Hey, I've still got a tech topic.
Okay.
And Tech Talk, I've got one, and it's the one, okay, the Google Drive situation. I'm trying to take all my Google Photos and my Google Drive, save it, and then put it in my iCloud. So on my computer, I have the iCloud open, and I have my drive open. And I want to know how I can do this without having to go file, photo by photo.
Do you have the Google Drive desktop drive installed?
Desktop drive.
Yeah, what is it absolutely called? Give me just one second.
OneDrive?
Well, OneDrive it's the OneDrive equivalent for Google. OneDrive is for Microsoft, but it's the equivalent of OneDrive but for Google. So if you go into Google Drive, which I'm doing right now. Oh, hold on a second. Richard's trying to get a hold of me. I need to take just a moment.
I think this is our handyman. We've got a bunch of stuff to get repaired before the B&B can open.
Well,
how are you
so
doing?
James started the recommendation. Arnie, good old Arnie Schwarzenegger, is doing an advertisement for Netflix, and he's talking about being made the adventure coordinator for Netflix. And there's a bunch of adventure series and movies that are out. So I binged The Night Agent. It was different, but I kind of liked it. And then I just did Arnold's new series, FUBAR. I'm assuming everybody understands the term FUBAR, F-U-B-A-R. And yes, Jim and Bill do, I know. But
must be before my time.
World War II.
Effed up for beyond all recognition. And Sandy, it was World War I, so no, it wasn't before your time.
What? Not that old. I don't know what to do about that, Cheryl. Maybe I'm going to just blank you.
Cancel.
Oh, I don't know how, darn.
Yeah.
Oh, here, we got it. Nope, that didn't do anything, did it?
No, I think you can only mute yourself. Your son can mute me. But anyways, okay, so FUBAR, it's a fun. I laugh out loud. It reminded me of, Bill, what did I tell you it was?
Is it a movie or a TV show?
It's a series, like a mini series.
FUBAR.
And on Netflix.
Arnold. With Arnold.
Arnold.
Oh, I think I saw a commercial for this.
But it was just laugh out loud. Oh, like a James Bond, and
Maxwell Smart.
No, Indiana Jones tied into one. So it was pretty funny. Night Agent was kind of hard to get into, but it was okay.
Did Arnold finish off the last episode with "I'll be back"?
No, he didn't. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't tell you. But no, he didn't. Another one I watched was on Prime, and it was called Women Talking. Yes. Very hard to watch. Religious, and it's very dry, and it's an hour and a half kind of thing.
Wasn't that nominated for some awards?
It was. The acting is fantastic. I think you would recognize some of the mostly actresses in there.
Yes.
And what the issues they're dealing with. Could it be today? Kind of.
Can I ask a question of you guys watching Netflix, because we watch it all the time, but we're having a hard time with some of these movies. Either you can't understand them very well.
Yeah.
Or they're so dark, and I've tried to, do some adjustments on the TV.
Yeah.
Yeah, Linda, that was my biggest problem with Night Agent. Everything was so dark. So I went into the settings on my Roku television, and I turned everything up to the brightest. But it seemed like it kept, like all I had to do was pause and it went dark again. I can't seem to keep it bright enough. I thought it was our TV.
No.
But maybe it's Netflix.
I think it's the movies. They're all just so dark that I don't know if you just have to turn all your lights off in your house to be watching them, like at the movie theater, but they're all dark. But the other problem is so many of these movies are dubbed.
Yeah,
That
I
they're
know
so
that.
hard to understand. And even with a sound bar, it's hard to understand what they're saying, and we just wind up turning them off.
The closed captioning is not synced properly. The closed captioning isn't synced.
Right.
And like in Stremio, I can go into my settings and I can adjust the closed captioning. I had seconds or back seconds, and you know, I can do some different things. I can choose different audio. But I have been having some audio problems and some vision problems in my own body. So, you know, but it is, some of it's technology.
Well, you know, a lot of these movies too, they're German.
Well, I want to throw something out there, Linda. What kind of TV set do you have?
An expensive Samsung, 65-inch.
65-inch. So it's 4K?
Yes, and we first had bought another one, and we took it back and got the more expensive TV.
And does it support the ultra high, the UHD ultra high?
Yeah.
Yeah.
4K. It's just the movies on, and I've watched them on different TVs. It's just these movies, they're so dark. And the sound is horrible.
I know. Well, first of all, I know of those two problems as completely different problems. They don't have to do with each other. But the darkness I have known in the past for being because they've recorded and distributing in such a high quality that it's diminished when you put it on a lower quality screen. You remember we had this problem with Game of Thrones. It was one of the few at the time that was identified as being insanely dark and difficult to watch. And the real reason was because most people didn't have sophisticated enough TV sets to dial in those colors correctly. And it didn't matter. I mean, people were upset by it regardless because they should be able to watch it. Whatever they're doing shouldn't be encouraging you to buy new technology. But that's definitely what it feels like. And especially now, you can imagine that the majority of the content is being recorded at a higher quality. That I'm surprised that you would be having trouble on a new TV set that supports 4K. I would expect you to be having a good experience, but it might still lead you in the right kind of direction. Maybe there's a setting for the Samsung specifically for streaming, something like dynamic or vivid or something that's been pre-programmed.
Well, they have a movie thing on the Samsung, but
it doesn't offer you any better clarity.
Even a lot of the actors are English, and they're very difficult to understand.
Well, let's not wrap the two things together. Right now, I'm just thinking of the color issue. The color issue has always been an issue of your TV. The content you're looking at was recorded at a higher, that ultra high definition quality, which a 4K and higher display lets you take advantage of, includes that extra color depth, that lighting and shading, so that if you had one of those TV sets back in the Game of Thrones age, you weren't complaining about it being too dark. The problem at the time was most of us didn't, and so we were all complaining about how hard it was to watch some of those episodes. Now, with a modern TV set, I wouldn't expect you to be having that experience. The sound issue, as I've understood it, is a similar kind of issue. It's a completely different issue, but it has to do with audio and the way that they record movies and TV shows for a specific standard that isn't available in your living room, as I understand it. So you should be able to supplement. They've recorded it in some standard like 6.1 or Atmos, And that's the only equipment that's going to reproduce that. If you're watching content that supports Dolby Atmos, it's going to be an inferior experience unless you have the equipment that supports Atmos. There's going to be sounds that are missing, dynamics that won't be reproduced. And they've gotten more sophisticated, not less sophisticated, as though the content providers are pushing you into new technology so that you can continue to enjoy it.
I think so.
There was a very interesting article I read from The Verge last month that talked about how the industry has also caused this audio problem by shifting from a model where discrete microphones are available and used within content creation. When your actors are out there filming, they're wearing lapel microphones and hidden microphones, boom microphones, and so they're doing their best job to capture the performance and its audio at the same time. The problem is, back in the past, back when movies started, those opportunities didn't exist, and the audio that was captured on set during shooting was horrible. It was very difficult to use in most cases. And in most cases, the audio that was recorded at the time of shooting was used as a guideline, and there was a whole budget for bringing in the actors to redo their lines on top of those scenes so they could get a clear recording for the final production. And so there was money for that. There were sound engineers, and there was studio time, and there was additional pay for actors to go and do this, to clean up that audio for the final production of the movie. They don't have that money anymore. What they have is money for carrying the microphones, and so the actors are expected to bring that audio at the moment of performance in this new model. And what you end up with, and you have less studio engineers now as well. You don't have these people on demand. You have to make special studio time. If there's no saving that audio, you have to schedule special studio time with sound engineers so that an actor can go in and redo that line that was too garbled to be used in the final product. So with all this technology, audio is actually taken kind of a step backwards simply because of the model that they're using to produce it now. They have less sound engineers and less budget for creating a superior sound. They've got more money for the technology because in the end it's cheaper to put microphones everywhere and hope for the best than it is to just budget to have to just be ready to reproduce every audio track that's used in the final product. Even if you, from what I understand, even if you were able to everything, yeah, let me try this again. With all that in mind, the sound engineers that they do have are mixing the final product to be produced in a final location like a movie theater or like a Netflix audience. They have to zero in on what kind of equipment would be used by a Netflix audience. And one of the budget constraints that wasn't the case in the past, when they had budgets for sound engineers and all this studio time to clean up audio, is that they would record in these different constraints. So you would have the Dolby surround sound copy, and you'd have the stereo sound copy, and you'd have the mono sound copy. And these copies would go out where it was appropriate. You have the mono movie house, you get a mono print for it because that was the best sound for that particular movie house. for TV viewing, most people had mono or stereo, so they would release one of those for the TV show. They don't have, they don't budget for that stuff. They record now for the highest quality that the creators want to use. This is Christopher Nolan got brought up quite a bit in this article because he's famous for recording at the highest quality possible, and you're on your own to watch it. His productions are really trying to push people into movie theaters and IMAX movie theaters with Dolby surround sound, 100 speaker systems. That's what he's recorded. That's what he's gearing these movies for. So when you're trying to watch it on your phone through Bluetooth headphones, you're not going to be pleased by the results. Nobody has made a version for your 6-inch phone and your Bluetooth headphones. That sound version doesn't exist. So they're cramping all that quality down, and you're relying on the manufacturer of your headphones to interpret that and create the sound correctly. So it's those two different factions that are happening in content creation that are affecting. It's the reason we're all going, why is this so hard to hear? How come I got to turn on the subtitles to understand what they... Those are the two things this article outlined as affecting audio in content creation in this day and age. Knowing all that, the only help it gives you is, well, you could buy a lot more equipment. You could stay on the cutting edge. Or you can turn on the subtitles. That's what a lot of us have done. Just turned on the subtitles. We got anything else? Mom, are you holding up your hand?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, Mom. Can I... Jim had asked before. Let's get Jim real quick, and then we'll go to you. Go ahead, Jim.
Sorry, Sandy. I'll make it real quick. Yeah, I have been having a problem with Google when trying to connect, and Google wants to do a two-step validation, and they'll say, open up the Google Mail, and we've sent you an email, and it'll have a code or a number, and follow the prompt, say yes, and then enter the number, this number online. And yet when I do that, I open up Gmail, there's no prompt, no way to get into that screen. And I don't understand it. And if I give up, then a few minutes later, they send me a message saying Google blocked someone with the password from your account.
Okay.
Got any idea what to do about that?
Okay, well, that second message is probably you not following through on the first message.
Correct. That's exactly right.
Right.
Because I can't.
Right. And the first message, I would encourage you to look at what it's prompting you for. Is it asking you for the email address? Because that has screwed me up in the past, where I'm sitting thinking I'm waiting to put a code in, and it's never arriving. And then I realize I've misread the message, and what it wants me to do, it's showing me a partial email, and it wants me to verify the email. So I have to type in the completed email address that would correspond with the partial email address they're showing me. And then after I've done that, then it's sending me the message for the code. And if you're not doing that, I apologize for going on with it, but this is something that has screwed me up a number of times where, I got to get in, I'm in a hurry.
You know, that's entirely possible. I don't know. I'll try it again and see what happens.
Just read it very clearly, because it's tripped me up so many times throughout the years where I'm in a hurry to get into it. And I'm like, all right. I'm waiting for a code. And I go looking for the code. It's got a box for me to put the code in, and the code's not showing up. And I look at the screen again, and I look at it again, and what I realize is it's showing me a partial email address. Like I have an international CSI at Gmail, gmail.com address, and it'll show me like @@ at gmail.com. And what it's really doing is it's asking me to write in the email address it's referring to.
Guys, forgive me. I've got an emergency call.
Certainly, Jim.
I have to get off.
Absolutely. I hope that helps. Look at it closer. I hope that's the case. It has always been the case with me when I'm not getting the code. The other thing is, did it go into Gmail? Did it go into junk mail? Always looking in junk mail for a message like that. Worst case scenario.
Or was it really from Gmail?
Say again?
That's another thing. Is it really from Gmail? That's another thing that you need to make sure.
Well, in this case, he's asking for the two-step authentication for like changing a password, something like that.
I understand that, but I get an email or I get a message from Gmail all the time that we need your password to download messages. And I just ignore it. And there comes my messages. So,
you know what I've been getting recently in that respect is your Prime membership payment has not gone through, which is not a message that Amazon sends out. FYI, if anybody's getting this message, Amazon doesn't send that message out. It's they're not. They've got a whole different message than that. But this message is saying that your Prime membership charges, and you can ignore it, and you'll get other messages through your Prime account when you're on Amazon. It'll be very obvious if your payment method has expired, but they will charge your Prime. You'll know that you haven't paid for Prime because your payment method will have expired. They will just take their Prime payment. But yeah. We've had some weird stuff going on here. Our bank has changed names. And though I haven't heard anything reported, I think that a bank changing name is just a right place for people to get taken advantage of on the internet. And
a friend of mine banks at Bank of the West, I think it was, and it's now Bank of Montreal. And she got nothing to tell her that this was happening.
Yeah,
Bank of the West.
Just a PSA for any of you that might be dealing with this: be extra cautious in all your communications, because they're rebranded, renamed, and again, I haven't heard any bad stories yet, but it just feels like it's the place where people to get taken advantage of. If I got a phone call right now from Global Credit Union, I would have to buy into it for a while because that's the name of our new credit union. And if they said Alaska USA, I'd have to hold on a second. Is this real or not? I actually had to get a couple of debit cards, one for our business and one for our for a personal, because they had expired. And the personal account I had to activate myself. When I dialed up, it said Alaska USA. If I were to be called by an Alaska USA right now, I would have to think it was fraud, because everything has been rebranded and renamed as Global Credit Union. But at the same time, and fortunately, I was standing right in front of the bank teller when I called the number, and I'm calling the number he gave me. And it's saying Alaska USA, so it's just a glitch on their part. And I mentioned it to him. He's like, yeah, it's going to be changed as well. But it really feels like an environment inviting bad actors to take advantage of people. So it's a bit of a PSA. If you're going through this, extra double check stuff.
And you could also go onto their website online and get a number there and call that number rather than talking to somebody that calls you out of the blue.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion, is just not even deal with people calling out of the blue.
Don't talk to them.
Yeah, and what was amazing when they did this changeover, like overnight, I lost my bank app, but then what I realized is I didn't lose it. it just changed the graphic. Like my iPhone is updating the applications automatically, so I'm not paying attention to when they update. And this app it changed over to a whole new icon. I had to do a search on it. I didn't find my app, but I searched on the new name and it was right there. The functions of the app are exactly the same, but everything's been branded with a new icon and a new name. I mean, it's just a little bit creepy the way it's taken over. And again, I've heard no bad experiences, but I feel like ripe for having a bad experience. Yeah, Judy.
So can I brag just for a minute?
Sure.
My youngest granddaughter tomorrow starts her internship at the Federal Reserve in Denver.
Oh, wow.
So she will be making sure that all these banks comply with the regulations, she told me.
Good luck.
Yeah, that's a real good luck. Well, I don't have much. I mean, I've got some news articles that we never got to, but we've been doing this for an hour now, and it feels like we need to start winding it down. Is there any last things we should get in? We got some recommendations in earlier. Oh, Mom, you had one more thing. Did you want to get to that?
I actually have two more things, but you took so long. The first one got solved.
Oh, good.
I did it myself. This doesn't have to do with computer TVs, looking or sitting and watching or fixing. But I went to the opera a couple days ago, and I ate popcorn. I had my feet up on the back of a chair, and I had on very casual clothes, and we drank sodas. And I don't know if you're aware of the Metropolitan Opera HD Live.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I hadn't been to a performance before, and I was so impressed with how you were talking about hearing the sound, seeing the pictures right when you're trying to do movies on TV. This was absolutely perfect. And what they had done is put a bunch of cameras, I don't know how many, maybe 20 in different parts of the stage itself with microphones. And they filmed it as it was being shown, and you actually feel like you're right there. It's just an amazing presentation. And at the intermission time, they had a speaker who happens to be coming to sing another opera, the next one that the Met will do. And she interviewed the different singers and the performers, and then of course the stage manager and the directors of both the music and the directions that people were going in terms of this, putting on something like that. Anyway, you can find that information on the television. I'm wondering if now they have it on the television. And the whole idea of this is to more modernize opera. And they still took Mozart, because we watched I lost it. Not Don Juan, Don, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, Don Giovanni. And where was I going with that? It was important. Oh, so she interviewed, the person who plays Don Giovanni, and it gives you a little bit of his background quickly, but then also talks about the challenge that he faced, singing that part. I just thought it was wonderful. The stage was modern looking. The clothes were normal. Everything would be as if you walked into whatever the setting was, which was more, not futuristic, but more kind of dark. I just think that's, if you think you might want to find out about opera or you love opera, what a wonderful way to go with your popcorn and your Coke and your.
And where was this? How did you
watch? It was at a movie theater.
Oh.
These are going out to movie theaters as a way of refocusing opera so that it matters more in the current, settings, trying to help people understand better what's going on with these song stories, and making it look like times that younger people could begin to identify with. So I think we're going to be able to get these eventually, maybe on TV, so we can be even more casual, like lay in our bed and watch it if we want to. I don't know much about opera. I just thought I would really like it. So back when we had, what was a blue box, or where you could go and get eight tracks, no, it was visual, those big plastic things that we would stick into our computer and watch a movie from when we rented movies. And I was able to rent a lot of the operas I knew of the names of and watch it that way. And that was years and years and years ago. And that was pretty good, except you didn't have this feeling that you were included with it. You were definitely watching it from a distance.
To be in the theater.
There's nothing like being in the theater. And yeah, so I give that's my experience with opera at the movie theaters so far.
Was it the Met? Was it the Metropolitan Opera?
Yes, it's the Metropolitan Opera. Oh, let me see. Just a second. Let me get that paper. Give me a second.
This is fun. I can hear her running across the kitchen.
Okay. I know it's Don Giovanni, and they give you at the theater all of this stuff, but I think it's certain theaters have done it. It's the Metropolitan Opera HD Live, and that's how we looked it up on the computer to find out about it.
HD Live? Do you mean they were actually doing the performance while you were watching it?
It's live. I've been to one of those, and it's pretty amazing.
It is.
I didn't understand that till just this moment. I thought it was pre-recorded.
Well, here's how it is. They've got all their cameras placed and their microphones at strategic places to be able to film. Now, I think what they had to do was do their filming live, and they probably had to stitch some of it together, I would think, but I don't know. All I know, it was just wonderful.
Very cool.
So that's all I got. Sorry.
Well, that seems like a good place to leave this meeting. That's some nice recommendations, and we'll get to tech news at another time.
Nice recommendation.
Jim had one more question. I sort of went ahead of him.
No,
Jim,
I'm good.
No?
Oh, okay.
I think we got everything.
I see in my memories that 3 years ago today we watched the launch of the SpaceX, and the people on it were Bob and Doug, which means maybe more to Canadians than it does to you guys. But anyways, we watched it, and it felt like back in the 60s when the first rockets went off. So that was 3 years ago.
All right. Well, until next Tuesday, you guys, everybody tech on.
Goodbye.
Take care.
Adios. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, there we have it. We've done it again. Another computer club is done. We do meet here on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. UTC -7. That's basically Arizona Sonoran time. That's the time we've based all this on. I personally in Alaska at the moment, so it's happening at 9 here. And some of those folks were in areas of Canada where it was happening at 11 o'clock. So check your schedule. If you enjoy our computer club, we've got links to other meetings and announcements at our website, scclub.org. You can always go to our YouTube channel. If you're looking for computer assistance anywhere on the internet, that's what my business is. I do remote IT administration and development. Get a hold of me, Scott, at internationalcs.net. Until next Tuesday, all you folks in internet land, you tech on, and we'll see you then. Goodbye.